Hello, and welcome to All Our Little Messes, a podcast focused on healing through intentional conversations about parenting, relationships, religion, and more. I am your host, Veronica Winrod, and I'm so happy to have you here, listening in on my thoughts today. I hope you enjoy this episode.
Hello and welcome back to All Our Little Messes. Today I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about finding our purpose in motherhood, which is something that I know I have struggled with a lot as I've had my children, and as parenting has changed my life and my marriage. I've struggled with it a lot, and I know a lot of women around me have as well, because it's parenting and motherhood, it changes our lives, and going through such a drastic change so quickly, sometimes we're talking in a matter of an hour, a woman can go from being married to and being pregnant to having a child that she has to care for, and she has to basically just be turned on. Her on switch has to be on for 24/7 for this new little being, and you lose yourself in that. And a lot of women can't find themselves after that. They can't find their purpose in life after that. And so I wanted to talk about that today, because the last couple weeks especially, I've started to think about that, and that's become very important to me, because I've definitely found myself becoming lost in it all, and having to stop and take a step back and try to identify my goals again, and identify the direction I'm wanting our family life to go, and talk to my husband and reiterate our plans for the next 5 years and stuff, because I find myself getting lost in the day-to-day struggles of my 5-year-old won't eat his dinner, and I have to chase my 3-year-old down because he found something, or my 2-year-old down, because he found something. And now that I have a newborn, or actually, goodness, she's almost 2 months old now, but now that I have a new baby, it all compounds into this everyday struggle that just repeats in the same way every single day, and you drown in that, and you can't find yourself anymore. And so it's very important that we stop often and think about our life and our goals and our children's goals, and where we want our lives to go. And I know that that doesn't always fulfill societal expectations of what a mother should be, because there's definitely this image that a mother should be this all-sacrificing person who gives up everything, and even down to who she is and her goals in life and things like that. She gives up everything for her children and for her husband and for her family. And that is, don't get me wrong, that is a very admirable thing to do. And there are millions of women throughout history who have done that exact thing. They have, abandoned themselves in service to their families. And, well, in a sense, that is the very essence of motherhood. At the same time, it's difficult to give of yourself to other people if you lose all sense of who you are. So I'm trying to think of another way to put this that would make more sense. You can't pour from an empty cup, essentially. We have to be fulfilled, and we have to be rested, and we have to not necessarily be happy, but we have to be content and have a stillness in spirit in order to properly, sacrificially serve our families. And so it's important that, as mothers, we don't fall into the trap of continuously just giving without any breaks, without any stops, and without a care for ourselves, because inevitably that will backfire and it'll harm our families. Like, we have to stop. We have to take a break. We have to, take time for ourselves. And the thing they call it these days is, self-care. Take time for self-care. And, a lot of people laugh at that online. I've seen, the Gen Xers and Boomers, talking about how back in my day, mothers didn't need to do self-care because they gladly served their families. And there's actually one Twitter account in particular I'm thinking of right now. She made a post like that the other day, and I was just blown away because, for one, for you to say that, back in my day, women just sacrificially served their families without any thought, it's so, for one, it's so degrading to those women that you're speaking of, because, mothers in this day and age are in the trenches, okay? We're actively raising the next generation, so we know how hard it is. So for, women to tell us, older women to tell us that, oh, it's not that hard, stop being a baby, stop whining, it's gaslighting is honestly what it is, because this is very difficult. It's very difficult, and we do get lost. And so it's just degrading to those women that have already gone through it, to tell them that, it wasn't that hard, basically. And then secondly, it's again, like I said, it's, gaslighting the current generation who is going through it right now. We do know how hard it is. So don't sit there and try to downplay, the very difficult journey we're going through in raising, your grandkids and your great grandkids. Like, it's not an easy job. So no, we definitely do need to take time for, self-care and finding ourselves in the middle of all this, because otherwise, it does. It affects our family, because if we're pouring from an empty cup, if we're always in, fight or flight mode, crisis mode, and our stress hormones are up, it's inevitably going to cause a breakdown. Like, we are going to snap. And because we're mothers, we spend most of our time around our children, and the victims of that breakdown, or the effects of us snapping, are going to be, our children and our husband or our spouse. And that's not fair to them either. So if we're going to be, actual sacrificial, like self-sacrificing mothers, then we have to take time for ourselves, to find our purpose, to find our direction in life, so that we can actually be good mothers. There's no other way to do it. And so I know a lot of women who have found their purpose. And honestly, like, I look at them and I'm just like, oh my goodness, you're a super mom. Because these women they really are super moms. They have, full-time, albeit they are staying at home while they do this, but it is still a full-time job. They're carrying on full-time jobs from home while raising 4 or 5 children, making, going to the gym for an hour every single morning, drinking a gallon of water, breastfeeding their youngest baby. And one woman in particular I'm thinking of still has time to make sourdough. Now, anybody that does sourdough knows how time-consuming that can be. Like, I tried to do sourdough. It didn't work out for me, because I have so much going on at home. And every single night I would go to bed and I'd be laying there and be like, oh my goodness, I am forgetting something. What did I forget to do today? What did I forget to do? And every single night I would almost be asleep and I'd be like, oh shoot, I forgot to feed the sourdough. So it would be at 10, 11 o'clock at night. I would be getting up to go pull out my big old bucket jug of flour and go feed the sourdough. And my husband would be like, you are crazy. Like, just let it go. So yeah, the sourdough didn't work out for me. It died. I had a starter that I put in the fridge because everybody told me, just put your sourdough in the fridge and it'll be fine. And you can leave it in there for months even. And I left it in there for 6 months, and I didn't even want to try to revive it. I was just like, I think I'm done with the sourdough, because again, it's one of those time consuming things that when you're in the trenches of motherhood, you just don't have the time for. But anyways, no, these women are just so, powerful with, their direction in life. Like they have found their purpose, and that is just so admirable to me. And I mean, they really are the definition. And I've talked about this before, but they really are the definition of a supermom. And I've talked about the dangers of trying to be a supermom, and that's definitely not what I'm advocating for here. Like, don't try to do it all. But what I am saying is to find your purpose in life. Find something that drives you outside of your family. I mean, our family is our ultimate sacrifice. It is our ultimate goal to serve them. But to my mind, in order to serve them correctly, we have to find something that is personal to us. That will give us a sense of achievement outside of, the everyday struggles of getting the 5-year-old to eat his food and chasing the 2-year-old down, and things that something that is outside of that. And for me, I'm actually taking a couple of business courses right now. And that gives me a sense of achievement and purpose outside of my family. And it helps center me so much. And I think that is very important for mothers today to do, is find something that calms their mind at night, something that focuses them, something that gives them a sense of achievement outside of their families. And like, I find that when I do that, I'm calmer, I feel less overwhelmed, I have a better, clearer vision of the future. I can make plans with an easier, clearer mind. I don't snap at my children as much because my mind it's difficult to explain, but it's clearer in a sense. Like, I can focus better because I have this drive and sense of achievement going. And maybe it's just, the what is it called? Dopamine. Yeah, the dopamine hit that I'm talking about here, that I'm feeling. But when I focus on a project and I try to find something outside of the family that is mine, essentially, it's very helpful in centering me and helping me to be a better mom. Something else that really helped me a lot was basically embracing the chaos that is the reality of being a mom. And what I mean by that is, you look at all of these TikTok and Instagram accounts, YouTube channels and stuff, and their houses are perfect, right? Everything is white, everything is beige, there are no stains, there's no food in the carpet, the toddler didn't peel an orange on the white couch or whatever they did that day. Nobody dropped a strawberry on the cream beige rug. So that is, in my mind, is not reality. That is not reality. And we need to get rid of that image in our minds, because that is not something we should be trying to achieve, because it's not realistic. It's okay if, your house is not cream and beige and white, and not perfectly clean. And the sooner I accepted that, I just accepted that my house wasn't always going to be clean. I accepted that there were going to be toys on my floor, that I was going to have to sweep the floor, 100 times a day, that I was going to be constantly doing dishes and washing bottles. I was going to have to vacuum the floor more often than I did before I had kids. There was no way for me to keep the house to the same standards of care that it was before I had kids, when it was just me and my husband. And so the sooner I accepted that, the sooner I felt like this sense of peace when it came to just, the normal everyday upkeep around the house. And, balancing that with making like a daily, not even a daily, more like a weekly schedule of self-care to do. Even something as simple as taking a weekly bubble bath on the same day, at the same time, every single week. When I did it, I haven't done it in a while, but when I did it, it was absolutely amazing because it gave me something to look forward to. So, like, I would look forward to this bath every single week because I would do it the same day, same time. I used Epsom salts and like a bubble bath, and like I would bring a book in there and like a glass of wine, and it was like this whole ritual that I did, and it was absolutely amazing, and I really should start doing it again. Now that I'm thinking about this, it sounds so amazing. Why did I stop? But, balancing, the responsibilities you have and offsetting, all of that chaos and the realities of motherhood with, self-care is also huge when it comes to calming yourself and finding, centering yourself and finding that sense of purpose in your life to, that will carry you through these times when we're, down deep in the trenches taking care of the toddlers. Another thing that was helpful was basically saying no. It was just saying no and learning to say no to, for one, societal pressures of, how your kids should behave, how your kids should look, how you should behave, what your family should be like, how your family dynamics, what your marriage should look like, how you should be raising your kids. Like, everybody has opinions, everybody has judgments, everybody's going to pressure you to do things the way they think you should do them. And the sooner you decide not to do that, the sooner you will start to feel like this sense of peace, like within your family, because, those outside opinions and judgments are honestly just noise. Like, we don't need to listen to that. We don't need that in our life. And it's only going to bring us down and weigh us down. And like, we need to trust in ourselves and in our newfound purpose of, being a great mother and being the greatest version of yourself. We need to trust in that to lead our families and not in outside pressures and opinions and judgments. Like, it's honestly just noise. Just turn it off, turn it out. You don't need to hear that because like I said, everybody has opinions, and most of the time they're wrong because they're crazy people. So, that helps me a lot when I just stopped caring about, the visions of perfect motherhood on social media and the opinions of everyone around me on how I should raise my kids and, the rights and wrongs of my marriage and, how my toddler was acting this particular day or whatever. When I started ignoring that, I felt so much peace, because in the end, you don't have to answer to those people for any mistakes that you made in parenting. You have to answer to God, and you have to answer to yourself, and you have to answer to your children. You're not going to be answering to Joe Schmo down the street who, thinks you should, cut out meals for your kid when he disobeys, or whatever crazy ideas people have these days sometimes. So, yeah, you don't have to answer to them. So why do their opinions matter? Another thing that really helps, and has helped me, is, I would call it like a form of meditation, honestly. I honestly would just like sit and reflect and think on my personal values and like my priorities in life, and think about, things that interested me and, different passions I'd have and different things I would be researching at the time, because anybody that knows me knows that I jump from passion to hobby to, it's just, I'm all over the place, something that'll interest me will interest me for a month, 2 months, and then I'll lose interest in it and jump into the next thing. But while I'm interested in that topic and in that hobby, I'm like all in. I learn everything I can about it, and I basically become a master at it. It's very weird, but here we are. So Like it is interesting though, because a lot of these things that I jump into often help me in my role as a mother, like in time management and, budgeting and things like that. For a while, and I actually did carry this one through, for a while I was interested in like accounting. And so I took a whole course on it, and like I finished the course, got all the certifications and everything. So now I'm like fully certified to be an accountant, like a bookkeeper. And that actually, I was able to like completely redo our budgets and like our books and everything. And that kind of thing completely helped in my role as a wife and a mother, and like helping my husband with his businesses and stuff. So, identifying your strengths and your passions is huge in like a journey of self-discovery, I guess you would say, like learning about yourself and learning about your passions and your focus in life and your purpose, finding your true purpose and like redirecting everything and channeling it where it should go. And it also, like learning all of these, like exploring my hobbies and like finding out what my passions, my interests, and my talents were. It also helped like explore opportunities and find opportunities for like personal and like future growth. Like, because I did all these things and I got good at doing some things, I was able, like opportunities opened for me that I never would have even thought of doing before. Like, I'm like the business courses I'm taking right now, I'm going to be able to apply and actually put into a, hopefully, fingers crossed, it's looking like a fairly viable business. And so identifying, your passions and your interests and finding out what you're good at can really help like define your purpose and open opportunities for, personal growth within your family that can actually, help drive your family, to greater success. And that's what being a mother is all about, is, driving your family towards success and towards Christ. And so, basically anything you can do to make you a better version of yourself is going to help your family do that. And so, always try to be learning about yourself, learning about your weaknesses and your strengths and what makes you better at certain jobs. Do you have a good sense of time management? Do you not have a good sense of time management? Are you a good organizer? Are you, good at math and, doing books and, just like try to find the things you're good at, your strengths. And then while you're at it, find out what your weaknesses are. Are you bad at time management? Are you, always late for things? I know I am. Having 3 kids does not make for good time management. So, so things like that, like just find out what your weaknesses are and really try to overcome those so that you can become the greater version of yourself, which in turn is going to, strengthen your sense of purpose and make you a better mother. And, finding that creativity as well. Like, being a mom isn't, a one-size-fits-all kind of thing. There is no one-size-fits-all playbook for being a mom. So one of the best things we can do is find out the way we can be a mom. Because, everybody, like I mentioned earlier, everybody has an opinion and a judgment. And one of the opinions and judgments that people like to have is they have the perfect recipe for being the world's greatest mom. And that is simply not true. Like I have mentioned this in, earlier podcast episodes. Our job is to become the greatest mother we can for our children, because our children were given to us for a reason. Because we were going to become the best mom for them. And so we don't need to be anybody else's version of the best mom. We just need to be our own version of the best mom. So find out what makes you the best mom. Are you creative? Are you organized? Are you, do you lay down the law? Are you firm? That kind of thing. I really want to encourage self-expression here when it comes to how you parent and how you find your purpose in motherhood, because that's what makes us great, is being ourselves, right? And being creative when it comes to, how we discipline our kids, and, how we encourage them. And another thing that can really make us great is, now I might get flack for this one, but you don't necessarily have to stay home to be a great mom. Sometimes there is a need for women to work. And I just want to point out that those of us moms who find ourselves in the position where we have to work, or even those of us who find ourselves in the position of wanting to work, are still good moms. Coming where I come from, working moms were looked down on because they weren't fulfilling their jobs. Basically, they weren't doing their jobs because they weren't staying home with their kids. And I find that incredibly damaging, because for one, we don't know the circumstances in that family. We have no idea what they're going through. It is not our place to judge, what that mom is doing. And I myself have worked. And knowing the struggles I know now that a working mom has to go through, knowing what I know now, I am ashamed to say that, I used to have those opinions about working moms. I used to think that they weren't doing their jobs because they were going off to work, and their kids were suffering because they had to be watched by a babysitter, or they had to go to the public schools, or whatever the things I said. I'm ashamed to say that I said those things, because going to work and leaving my son at home was one of the hardest things I had to do every single day. I hated it. I hated leaving, and I was always so excited to come home. And so it's definitely not something that we should, pass judgment on, let's just say. I wouldn't say something to be considered, because obviously, the ultimate goal of a mother is to stay home with her children and raise them and be with them. And I mean, that's kind of the defining role of being a mom. But for those of us that don't have that option, there's nothing wrong with that. And that's the road we have been set on in life. And because we've been set on that road, it would be our responsibility and our job to walk that road the best way we can, to the best of our ability. So I would really just say, just don't pass judgment on working moms, because it's not an easy road. And, those of us moms who walk that gracefully are so impressive to me, because, again, I know the struggle. So kudos to you guys. But anyways, yeah, so, and another thing I wanted to point out, so things that are difficult, and I mentioned this as a struggle of mine, is when it comes to balancing, motherhood and personal goals. So time management and setting realistic expectations for myself and things like that. I really struggle with time management. I really, really do. And so it's difficult for me to balance motherhood and personal goals I have for myself, because in my life, motherhood takes first priority, obviously. I mean, my kids need me. And if I'm not there to provide for them, to help them, they suffer for it, because, they're tiny little children, they're helpless little children. So they need me. So obviously, motherhood takes first priority in my life. And oftentimes that means that the personal goals I've set myself, they take the back burner, and I sometimes don't get to them for, weeks on end. It's just not something I focus on, because again, the kids need me. So one thing that I've really struggled with is, one, setting, boundaries for myself, and, learning time management and setting realistic expectations for myself. And especially with the last one, setting realistic expectations, I really come down hard on myself, because, I'll set a goal of, wanting to work on a project for, 2 to 4 hours this day. And then, comes down to the end of the day and I haven't worked even 5 minutes on that goal. And I really come down hard on myself, because, I didn't fulfill my goal for the day, I'm like, I'm failing. I'm behind. I'm failing at my job. I'm failing at my project. And that is such an unrealistic expectation to set for myself, because I'm forgetting that my first goal is to be the best mom I can. And so, if my personal goals have to take a back seat to that temporarily, that's fine. I just need to learn better time management strategies so that that doesn't always happen. Because again, you have to have that sense of purpose outside of, that sense of achievement and that sense of purpose outside of being a mom, so that you can be, a calm, centered, stable mother. So learning time management and setting realistic expectations really go hand in hand. Because when you're a mom and you have, personal goals outside of being a mom, like, you have to have both. You have to have time management. You need to know time management, and you need to have realistic expectations, because your personal goals may or may not happen that day. You may have to put them to the back burner for the next day, and that's totally okay. And the next day you can try to figure out how to manage your time better, or work things around a little bit more so that you can get in some time for yourself. And, sometimes that means telling your partner when he comes home that, hey, you know what? I am clocking out as a parent for the day. I need to go work on some stuff, or I need to take an hour break. And, I do that sometimes. My husband will come home. I will hand him the baby. There's pumped milk in the fridge. And one thing I have found that is incredibly calming is actually grab my Bible and I go find like a park or somewhere that's like quiet, and I just sit in my car and I read the Bible for like an hour, and it completely empties my mind, and it's the most amazing thing. I did it last week. I was having a really hard day, so I went to the grocery store, did my grocery shopping. I went and picked up some Panda Express, that really junky Chinese food that I would never recommend anybody eat. But I went and got some junk food, and then I sat in a parking lot with my Bible, and I just ate junk food and read the Bible, and it was the best hour of my life. I'm not even joking, you guys. It was so calming, so refreshing, and so nice, and I honestly can't wait to do it again. I would highly recommend anybody sit in an empty parking lot with a Bible. It is so good. But yes, take the time. Set realistic expectations for yourself. Don't go overboard. Don't expect too much of yourself. Don't come down hard on yourself. Learn better time management when you don't, meet those, realistic expectations. Be like, okay, what can I do the next day to meet those realistic expectations? What can I do to find my purpose, a little bit better the next day? And if it's still not working, you may need to take a step back, take a break, go find an empty parking lot with your Bible, empty your mind, just calm down, and then come back and revisit the next day. Like, we're not going to achieve anything. We're not going to find our purpose in life if we're always in fight or flight, if we're always in crisis mode. So we need to just calm down and really work on centering ourselves and finding that purpose in our lives. Otherwise, again, we're going to be pouring from an empty cup, and our kids are not going to get the best version of ourselves. Thank you very much, you guys, for listening to this episode of All Our Little Messes. Something I wanted to run by you guys is I've been thinking about hosting a Q&A with all our listeners to submit questions and bring up, maybe submit ideas for future podcast episodes if there's something you guys want to hear me talk about. So yeah, and I thought about bringing on a couple of, fellow mothers to bring on to kind of like a panel discussion to do a Q&A with. But, I wanted to run that by you guys and see what you would think about me doing something like that. I was thinking probably YouTube or something like that. So, shoot me an email or a message on Facebook or on Instagram if you think this is a good idea, or if you have any questions about that kind of panel discussion. But otherwise, thank you guys very much for listening in this week, and I will see you next Thursday.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of All Our Little Messes. Please let us know how much you enjoyed it below and add any questions you have about this episode. Also, don't forget to follow us on Patreon for amazing exclusive perks, including early access to podcast episodes and bonus episodes every month. We've also recently added a support group for all of our paid patrons. You can check us out on Facebook and Instagram for daily updates and insights that mirror podcast topics. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week.